All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Glenn Kelly. I am from the Imaginarium studios in London, and I'm head of production, which is a very fancy way of saying I'm a project manager of project managers, basically. And I'm here today to talk about how we captured a 2-hour and 20-minute musical, a very traditional musical that involved a cast and puppets and a very bare stage, a very small stage, in actual fact. This is a clicker. I'm going to take this. There we go. But first, a little bit about the Imaginarium Studios. We are a performance capture and virtual production studio. What does that mean? Well, it means that we take the actions of a performer and we translate them into the digital world. This is used in film, in TV, in video games, and more emerging markets like AR, VR, mixed reality, spatial computing, whatever you want to call it. The studios themselves are located in the oldest working studios in the world, Ealing Studios, which is a little bit weird because the buildings are like 1902, and we have some of the most high-tech kit inside them. So it's always a bit funny when people arrive and they look and go, ooh, this looks a little bit old. In early 2018, we formed a partnership with Magic Leap, the augmented reality or mixed reality, or as they call it, spatial computing company based in Plantation, Florida. They're developing a headset with a body pack that allows digital content to be overlaid in the real world. Now, unlike some AR that you might be used to, Pokemon Go, for example, spatial computing is about digital permanence. It's about placing an object in the real world and it remaining in that spot. So the device that you wear, the Magic Leap 1, would scan this room, it would understand where it is in the room, you would place a digital object, and you can walk around it in 360 degrees. Now, at the moment, I should point out, it's a kind of Star Wars level hologram. It's a little bit translucent, but the technology is evolving every single week, literally, with these guys, and we've seen it come in leaps and bounds. They released Magic Leap 1 last year, and we were very honored to be some of the first people to work with this device, and you can actually pick up one of their developer kits today. It's not cheap, but it's very cool. Right, the Grinning Man. In the mid-2018, Andy Serkis, who is the creative director of the Imaginarium Studios, went to see a musical. He loved the musical. He went backstage afterwards and he said to the cast and to the production company, what's going to happen? Is this going on the road? Is it going to tour? And they said, no, this musical is going to end in 2 days and will never be seen again. Andy, being a creative, said, well, that's no good. I own a technology company. I want to save it. So he came into the office the next day and said to us, we're going to capture this musical. We're going to preserve it. I, of course, said, okay, Andy, we can do one bit of it, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. He's like, no, 2 hours and 20 minutes, Glenn. No one had ever done that. That's a feature film length capture. I said, when do we need to do this by? He said, well, all the cast go away in 6 days. Okay, so we, in 6 days, arranged for the entire cast, that is 15 people, 5 puppets, and a piano player to turn up at our stage. And I'm going to show you a bit of a video that shows the process of capturing this musical.
Prepare yourselves for a tale so utterly horrid and yet strangely uplifting. Here.
I was fortunate enough to go and see the penultimate performance of The Grinning Man at the Trafalgar Studios. Everything about it, the subject matter, the fact that it was a play within a play within a play, the puppeteering, everything. I just started to get images of this show as a motion captured piece.
Gift of love has given me life, my sorrow and heartache you have melted.
The whole notion of capturing a theatrical production is brand new. This hasn't been done before.
This is the most advanced technology in terms of motion capture that exists. But there's a sense that if it all works, the product at the end will be something that no one's ever seen before.
People have cancelled holidays, people have rearranged jobs, people have postponed job interviews, and it's just been fantastic how people have basically rallied and cleared their diaries to make it happen.
And firing 3, 2, 1.
The Imaginarium was born out of, I'd like to do Shakespeare's plays as video games, or to take theatre and take the performances that have been worked on by actors over a course of a rehearsal period, and then somehow, create a future life for them.
In many ways, it is quite close to theatre. This morning, we were in this room saying, here's a box of wood, we're going to pretend it's a ship. But surrounding us is this extraordinary technology which will be able to make it a ship, any kind of ship you like.
It's a bit weird having something strapped around your head. I guess you just ignore it. It's kind of easy to ignore because the camera's sort of just below your eye line, so you can play out as normal, talking to a normal person.
One fascinating aspect of it is that the actors are in control of the performances which will be delivered by avatars. So the actors are almost puppeteering animated versions of themselves with great precision.
It's been my first time transitioning a piece from theatre to mocap, and I just thought, how on earth will I get the transition right? So what I started to do at first was to just imagine my costume, which I'm one of the ones I'm wearing right now, and imagine the heels, because when we're filming mocap, I can't wear them. So it's just about keeping my body the way how I would be when I was on stage, remembering that there is a swish here, and remembering that I'm wearing a cage, and remembering that I am this tall.
This camera. Yeah. And when
We had a conversation at the beginning, which was about the scale of performance. Should the actors play big, as if they're in a theatre, or small, as if they're on a film? And it has to be a combination of the two, because we think that what we're creating might enable an audience to wander around in the middle of a performance.
What we have here at the Imaginarium are people who are very attuned now to working with a lot of different creative forms of expression, because what you're able to do in this world is not just like a particular take as you would in film. You're able to split up performances within that take. Of course, the characters are recorded in 3D, so you can slip timing, you can reposition, and it does encourage you to explore and take risks. And it's not like being on a film set where you've got a lot of lights and you're under a lot of pressure, and there's maybe a big gap before you're shooting. You can work very, very quickly and intuitively and redo scenes and shoot whole scenes.
When I think from the point of view of the theatre in Bristol, we've got this extraordinary 250-year-old theatre. It's the oldest working theatre in the English-speaking world, very atmospheric place. It may be that this kind of technology can enable someone in Hong Kong or Georgia to experience that very unique theatre.
My story ends here. Your story begins.
What's so incredible about this is that we have these performances now. They're in the bottle, if you like. They can be manifested in countless ways on countless platforms. Who knows, in 10, 20 years' time, someone else might come up with a different design for the characters. We can enlarge their heads, we can enlarge features, make their brows more hooded, make their noses bigger, design them in whatever way we choose to. It won't be too long in the future when you'll be able to buy the data and put your own designs on the character and bring it to life as a sort of as a show that you're creatively involved with as well. This is the Imaginarium, and there's a very, very good reason why we wanted to call it that, because it is something within which you get into the space, and it's like it's a cathedral to the imagination.
So that was the Capture Week. It was 5 days, as I said, 15 performers, 5 puppets, and a piano player. But at the end of the day, I was given the task by Roni, the CEO of Magic Leap, and Andy Serkis to capture this play, or this musical. And how do you do that? How do you capture a performance that is very traditionally done once and then disappears? Well, you have to break it down. And to do that, we broke it into many, many, many components. And this was the process we chose. We motion captured every single one of the cast. So you saw them in the grey suits with the markers on them. So every single cast member was wearing 58 markers, so we tracked every movement of their body, joints and bones. The puppets that you can see, that's Mojo in the bottom corner there, were also marked up so we could track the components of them as they moved around. So we had that data. We then facial captured all the lead cast. You saw them with the headsets on with the camera in front of them. Every single lead cast member had their face recorded in every scene that they were in. We also recorded some of the chorus members. The reason I didn't do everybody, I physically did not have enough head cams for 15 cast members. Had I had them, I would have done everybody. We gave every single performer, the part of their performance is their singing and their talking. So every single performer wore a lav microphone, similar to this, and had an in-ear monitor. We got a clean audio recording of every single performer. We then body scanned every single performer in their costume and also in their mocap suit, because I had no idea how we were going to do their costumes. This was all done kind of speculative. We also, for the cast that wore head-mounted cameras, sat them in that same 120 camera rig and did a fax session with them, which is where you do very high detailed photos, about 14K, of their chest up, their head, and you get them to pull a bunch of silly faces so that you can get that range of emotion from their face. We LiDAR scanned all of the props, all of the puppets. We had 4 reference cameras running the whole capture, so we have video footage of the entirety of the week. And then finally, we collected all of the original designs for the staging. So we bundled this all together, and we had bottled, at that point, 2 hours and 20-minute musical. We had all the individual components. This was our working theory, was if you got all those components together, you could create something. So I'm just going to say, so this is the part that we captured in the 5 days. We did facial capture on all the main performers. We did fact scans. When you combine the facial scans into a big grouping and you rig them, and then you take the facial videos that you captured on the set and you solve them with a computer and you mash them together, you get facial animation. When you do the same with the body scans, you take those, you put a digital skeleton inside them, you process the motion capture data that we captured during the week, you apply that to the digital skeleton, and you get body animation. You then take the head and the body and you mush it together, and you get a digital character. You then apply the audio that you recorded to that character, and you have a digital avatar of a digital performer, basically driving a little version of themselves. That was the theory. What did we actually do with the data? Well, Roni said we needed to prove that what we had captured in the 5 days would work. So he said, pick 5 minutes of the show and turn it into something that will run on our Magic Leap device. So we picked the opening number of the show, and we processed all the characters that we needed, the same way as I just said. Then we put all their animation together, and we loaded it onto their device. What I'm about to show you is the first animation test. Now, this wasn't on Magic Leap's device, but this was just using the assets that we knew would run on them. And this is just one character. And this has never been seen outside of our office, so don't tell my boss.
Oh, London, you human cesspool in a world of inescapable misery. Look around, unhappy people, see the truth you can't deny. Read the faces of your neighbors, life is pain, and then you die. You're here because your hearts are broken, here to mop the tears you've shed and escape the poison spoken by the voices in your head. For here amid the raging pain there is one tiny crumb of joy, a lesson burnt into my brain when I was but a little boy.
Okay, so that was Julian Bleach, the lead character Barkilphedro, singing his opening number. That is a mobile quality asset. We hadn't simmed any of the clothing. That is the direct body scan, just downscaled. And that facial animation is about 5% of what it could be. It was a very basic test, but it kind of worked. We then said, right, let's see if this will run on Magic Leap's device. Up to this point, we had no idea if it would. What you're about to see is shoot-through of their device. It's a little bit transparent. The real thing, when you have the headset on, feels a lot more solid, to the point that we've had someone try to lean on the stage and fall over. But yeah, so this also has never been seen outside of my office. I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for this.
You're here because your hearts are broken, here to mop the tears you've shed, and escape the poison spoken by the voices in your head. For here amid the raging pain there is one tiny crumb of joy, a lesson burnt into my brain when I was but a little boy.
However foul misfortune smells, however sharp her vicious claws, there is always someone else whose life is even worse than yours.
Cool. So it worked. Thank the Lord, because I would have been fired otherwise. Yeah, so it worked on their device, and we actually have a 5-minute demo of the opening number with up to 10 characters walking around on stage, and you can place it in front of you and walk around it and interact with it. But yeah, so what did we learn from doing this process? Well, more time. For the love of all that is holy, do not do pre-production in 6 days and capture in 5 days. It's insanity. Don't ever do that. For traditional theatre, for art, you need to give performers time. 5 days is way too short a period. Basically, they were used to doing a 2-hour and 20-minute musical for 2 hours and 20 minutes once a day. For 5 days straight, we had them performing this musical for 10 hours a day. It just burns them out. So if in the future, definitely give yourself more time, or I would give ourselves more time. That said, well-rehearsed performers, traditional artists who are used to doing an entire thing in one hit are phenomenal. They came out, we did 2 takes of every single scene in that musical. We did not need to do 2 takes. We used the first take of every single one of them. The muscle memory of traditional artists is just unbelievably good. That was Julian, that was the very first thing we captured with Julian, and it was the first thing we processed, and it will go into the final thing if we ever get a chance to make it. We also learned that 14 people in a mocap volume is way too many people in a mocap volume. We normally only do 1 or 2 characters at a time, sometimes up to 6, but that's a rarity. I had 15 people at the peak, but 14 normally, plus puppets, plus props. It was very intensive on our system. If I was to go back, I would upgrade our system a bit more. And technology is ever evolving. We captured that in 2018. It's now nearly the end of 2019, and the technology has evolved since then. We discovered that the hands were a problem. Capturing artists' hands is very difficult. So in the interim steps, we have developed some gloves that actually reduce the amount of time in post-production that it takes to do people's hands. So where does this take us in the future? Well, we would like to do more of this. I think it works. We think it works. What we did with it, I should probably briefly explain. We sat down and we thought through how we should present this. And we said it's a theatre production, so it should be presented in a way that an audience could sit down and watch it, but we don't want them to have to go into a theatre, so we made it tabletop size. We then said, well, Tom Morris wanted to be able to walk amongst the actors, so we made it scalable, so you can actually scale it up to this room size if you wanted and walk around amongst it. So this led us to believe that, well, actually, this gives us a chance to explore beyond just the performance itself. So moments normally hidden from the audience. Something amazing that happens with theatre is actors are on stage doing their performance, and then as soon as they step off to the side into the wings, they do this lovely drop down. They go, oh God, I'm off stage, thank God. But we captured that because they were on our stage, and standing side of stage, looking in at them do that is absolutely wonderful. So we want to do more of that. We want to capture those moments that you don't normally get to see. Of course, we also want to bring down the cost. Now, I'm not allowed to say how much it costs to capture it, but let's just say it wasn't a $5, it was a lot more. And the big component of turning it into something that is viewable was facial performance, is processing that. That is very expensive at the moment. But as technology develops, there's many companies both here in Europe and in the States, and of course down in New Zealand with Weta Digital, working very hard on bringing that cost down. And post-processing of data is still very intensive. It takes artists a lot of time to go through it. Something else we would look to do, and it was mentioned in there by Andy, was in the future it would be great to be able to offer this data, the raw data, out to the public for them to play with. There's nothing stopping us doing that, aside from contracting and IP laws, but it would be brilliant down the line if shows that were no longer going any further could be released to the public for them to put their own spin on things. And the methodology we use to capture this show would allow that. Of course, the future is also defined by, we did this for Magic Leap, which is an amazing device, and if you haven't checked them out, please do. Absolutely mind-blowing stuff. But there's new devices coming every year. I believe the rumor currently is Apple's augmented reality goggles are due out in 2020. Most recently, I've been playing around with the Oculus Quest, which is a VR headset that's a standalone one. There's lots and lots of opportunities for traditional art forms to be ported to these new mediums and to expand in these mediums. Of course, it's going to take the uptake of consumers on these devices. Now, Oculus Quest is a prime example. That thing sold out, I think, overnight. And I'd love to see when Magic Leap finally becomes a commercial device, how quickly that will sell out, because it is game-changing. And then, of course, the increase in rendering power. The images you saw today were limited by mobile GPUs. Basically, what's in the device currently is the same processor that is in your mobile phone. It's powerful. It's not that powerful. It's not computer equivalent, but we're getting there. And it's developing very, very quickly. Finally, something to keep in the back of your mind, and something that Andy and Tom both drilled into me and my crew, was that their idea for this technology is to give access to art and culture to audiences that don't normally have access to it. Theatre is, by itself, quite a limited thing. If you don't live in a place like London or New York with Broadway, you don't really have access to some of these shows. With this technology, in the future, these shows could be taken into schools, into homes, and allow you to view them whenever you feel like viewing them, like Netflix. This will open up this art. So something, say, produced here in Porto, could be captured in this method and shown to the world in their living rooms. Very similar, I like to kind of compare it to YouTube, opening up video production to very, very small creators to the entire globe. The other great thing with this is it can allow access to people who are physically limited, as in stuck in a hospital, stuck in a town in a far north of a country, or simply do not have the means to get to a theatre or to an art exhibition. Finally, our hope with this technology is, as things develop, our kind of base level of data, what we captured on the day, can be upscaled. So we captured, for example, the body scans at 14K. At the moment, kind of the commercial TVs are about 4K. So we're hoping that we've future-proofed this data so that as it develops, future generations could take this data, this raw data, process it, and show it on newer technology. So that's kind of our goal, is that this technology will help preserve art and theatre for the future. Got about 36 seconds left. At the end of the day, what this technology can also do is take the skill set of people that are behind the scenes and showcase them. So for example, with this theatre show, with The Grinning Man, we asked the lighting technician from the show to help us design the lights for the digital version. So his skill set's not lost. We're not removing him from the equation. We're taking his skill set that he's worked on for 30 years and bringing it into the digital world. The same goes with camera operators. You saw the camera there moving very digitally in the animation I showed you. Well, our idea, of course, would be to get a camera operator, someone who has worked on their skills for the last 30 years making feature films, to come in and put digital cameras on this work. Some of you may have seen The Lion King. Has everyone seen The Lion King? Yeah, hopefully. It's well worth going to see. That was a perfect example of using a real-world camera person, a DOP, and bringing it into the digital world. Folks, I wish I could show you The Grinning Man, but our hope is in the next 6 months or so, we will get all the contracting in place so it can be sent out there to the world. If you get a chance to pick up a Magic Leap device, do. They are expanding to Europe very, very soon. And that's about all I've got time for, so There we go. There is our social media. If you do follow us, we always do announce when we're going to put things out there. So thank you very much for listening.